Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Your Views on the News with me, Azhar Ali. Now, just before the break, Muhammad Amin, you had something to come back in on what Masood was saying.
Yes, I just wanted to say that it's not true that nothing is happening about people saying things about Muslims. I've read that two people have pleaded guilty in court in Manchester to making inciting statements on Facebook. So they've clearly been prosecuted. Rather than trying to plead not guilty and make their sentence worse, they have pleaded guilty. We don't know what sentence they will get. Action is being taken if people are inciting crimes against Muslims.
But do you think, I mean, this issue of Islamophobia, and it's two or three of you, do you get a sense that there is a national push from the government, from the police, that, you know, this form of backlash is not acceptable? Has that come across?
I mean, I think that we have to accept, you know, and this is borne out by polling evidence in Britain, that Britain has a problem with Islamophobia. It has a problem with Islamophobia which is bigger than other Western countries. And, you know, it'd be interesting to discuss the reasons for that. But it's a serious problem, and it's got worse in the last week, as we all know. I mean, we had this caller a moment ago who, in my opinion, was clearly expounding hate speech against Muslims and Islam. But I'm afraid that is quite mainstream. We see on our newspaper's website all the time people commenting in that way.
This is the area, and callers, I'm going to come to you, I promise. This is an interesting point, because a lot of us do think that it's the far right, you know, you're kind of real extremists in terms of the British National Party or the English Defence League. They are the ones that are peddling this Islamophobia, but it is quite mainstream. There's ordinary people that are perhaps doing this.
Look, we need to sort of look at this again very in depth and without prejudice. One of our research paper on hate crime in Britain, we actually look at how the society is becoming promoter of hate. You know, hate actually becomes part and parcel of the culture. This is exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. It's not just the extreme right, fascist or whatever. It actually becomes acceptable. It becomes part of the politics. It becomes almost like a sort of race card that politicians playing. Is a Islamophobic card they're playing. Because when they see 37% of people want the number of Muslims reduced, that's actually a fantastic thing.
Just
and sorry, just let me say, the numbers that also have been mentioned, that, you know, there has been sort of 200 and odd cases, it actually just a tip of the iceberg, because
you're talking about incidents.
I mean, we actually, in our research that we did 2 years ago, not at the time of the crisis, we saw 13% of the Muslims were physically attacked. No,
but this is one of the very
3.5 million Muslims. You know, we're talking about 400,000 Muslims.
This is one of the points that many organisations and people have said about Islamophobia is still not being recorded nationally in a uniform manner. So to get data on how many there is problematic.
But that's why we actually had to bring up the new methodology, because really, to expect people to come and report it is not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Hold that thought. I need to go to my callers. Many of you are waiting. Apologies. Let's go to Ibrahim straight away to Northampton, I believe. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Wa alaikum salam.
You're on air. Go for it.
When I've seen what happened on the news, and I'm really frustrated.
What is it you're frustrated about?
Because people are blaming every single Muslim for this act. It's not like thousands of Muslims die in, like, you know, parts of Asia, and like you don't see us complaining every day. And because you can't blame every single Muslim for what happened. It's like saying Christian, Hinduism, anything. And say, for instance, one majority of the group has done this act. You won't blame the whole religion, whole community. You blame the person. So I want to see, like, you know, people just blaming the person. I don't mind if people blame the person, but I don't want to see people, you know, blaming Islam for what happened.
Ibrahim, do you think, in terms of the response from the government and police and other things, do you think that they're reassuring the Muslim community, in particular, about the backlash?
I don't understand.
Well, okay, don't worry about it, Ibrahim. Thank you very much for your call. Let's go to Dini, who's calling from London, I believe.
Yeah, hi, assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam, you're on air.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that Islam stands for peace, and that I don't agree with any of the attributes or the things that the Woolwich killings of the victims committed. What I usually don't like is the media attention that the actual Woolwich terrorism act that was given. but 3 weeks ago, a racism attack was. I know you guys mentioned it before, but I just want to reiterate that the racism attack in Birmingham wasn't given any immediate. Well, it was given some, but as not much feed off the media. And it's always Muslim and terrorism are always linked together nowadays. When the Kentucky, when the Sandy Elementary School killing happened in America, I think it was 2-3 months ago. He was called a murderer. I think that was more of a terror than a murder, because he killed 26 children, I think, which I'm not saying any death is a bad thing, but it's 26 murders to one death is more terror than the one terrorism act of killing this one person. So basically, I just don't like the fact that Muslim and terror are always in the same sentence, that when someone thinks of Islam, they think of terror, when Islam stands for peace.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for your views. Let's go straight to Abdul Qadir, who's calling from Colchester. Assalamu alaikum, Abdul Qadir.
Assalamu alaikum.
You're on air. Your views, please.
Yeah. What happened to that young soldier is a dreadful act, and it hasn't got anything to do with Islam. May I convey my sincere condolences to his family and to his relatives. And the second thing I'd like to say, I'm a Muslim, and I've been living in this country for quite some time. But I'm afraid our Muslim leaders and our mosques are not doing enough.
In terms of not doing enough, in terms of what?
In terms of integration.
Okay.
We try to create ghettos in this country. This country has offered us shelter and everything.
What do you mean by ghetto?
Well, we want to live like a separate life to the British life. We're Muslims.
Can you give me one example of what you mean by a separate life?
Well, we don't, for instance, very rarely we marry Christians. Yeah, although we are allowed in Islam to
so marrying Christian, okay. So you're not talking about integration, you're talking about assimilation perhaps then?
Yeah, no, not assimilation. No.
So what is it?
I'm a practicing Muslim. I'm
not calling you Islam into question, Akhi. I'm just asking, because it's a very important subject that you're bringing up, because it has both sides, two sides to the argument. I'm just trying to understand, when you say ghettos, when you say they live separately, I'm just trying to understand, what do you understand by those words?
Yeah, we do not want to integrate. We want to live like we bring our countries.
So basically, we want to keep our own identity.
In England.
Jazakallah khair, Abdul Qadir. Sorry, I have to cut you short. Let's go to Salim to Wembley. Salim, assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
You're on air.
Thank you.
Go for it. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Salim, you're on air. Alaikum salam.
Can I ask your panel, don't you think there's a real lack of leadership in Muslim community? The reason I say is, if you look at the press and the media, what have they said in the last few days, it's absolutely ridiculous, really. And
what's ridiculous?
Well, some of the stuff has been said, if you look at it in the radio and even in the press.
Give me an example, sorry.
Well, if you listen to I listen to the radio, BBC 5 Live in the morning, for instance, right? People like Nicky Campbell, somehow he'll have to bring Islam into the argument.
But how is that the fault of the leadership in the Muslim community? What is it that you think is lacking?
Nobody to defend us, really. If you look at it, these people get away with everything.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Let me take one more.
One thing, about Seamus' brilliant article, yesterday's Guardian. If you can just let him know, it's beautiful.
You've just told him. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Salim. Okay, let me take one more call and I'll come back to my panel. I believe Fatima is on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Fatima. Hello, Fatima. Hello.
Wa alaikum assalam.
You're on air, sister. Your views, please.
Okay, I'd just like to say, there's talk about monitoring the activities.
You need to turn the volume down on your television and just talk to us.
And things like that. But my concern...
Yeah. Okay, Fatima.
Okay, basically to say my concern is over very young children, especially the primary and the secondary age children, who are coming up with their own conclusions from the media and from the social, media sites and things like that. Nobody's actually talking to them. The adults are talking at length, discussing and debating the issues.
Sure.
When these children go back to school, this subject will be taboo to them in schools, and they're all the time being told that they need to be responsible citizens and they have equal rights and nobody's to be discriminated. But the schools won't actually be dealing with such issues. So these young children are left believing to be what one of your panelists said, inherently something wrong with them being Muslims, and potentially. These are going to be the people who are going to carry on the activities, good or bad, in the future. And, what are our Muslim leaders doing to address that view?
Thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you. Well, a couple of our callers have mentioned this about the response from the Muslim leadership is that they find it lacking and everything else. Seamus, do you have any views on that?
Well, to be honest, I have some sympathy with public figures in the Muslim community because they're under an incredible pressure, both by the media and politicians, to simply condemn the act and not speak out about the issues which matter to not only, of course, to Muslims, but many non-Muslims as well. And so there's an incredible pressure on the community, and I've seen in the last 10 years, as this process has gone on, that many Muslims who were active in politics and protest movements over the war in Iraq, over the war in Afghanistan, have withdrawn from that activity because I think they feel intimidated by the securitization of the whole issue, of the pressure and an assault on the Muslim community. So I think, of course, Muslim leaders could and should speak out more on these issues, but I understand why they're reluctant to. And I think the real issue is that non-Muslims should speak out more in defense of the Muslim community and to draw attention to the fact that this isn't simply an issue for Muslims, it's an issue for the whole country. The majority of people in this country are opposed to the war in Afghanistan, particularly in working class communities, by the way, because that's where the soldiers are mostly drawn from. The majority of people in this country were opposed to the war in Iraq as well, and they're opposed to the war on terror. So actually that's something that unites Muslims and non-Muslims. And I think one of the problems in the last few years is that many people feel that protest or politics is failing to deal with this issue. The majority of people are opposed to it. They think it's a crime. They think, and they want it stopped, but it's not working. The political class is not reflecting public opinion. That's a problem for all of us.
Sure. Mohammed Amin, do you want to add anything on to leadership, in particular Muslim leadership?
I think the performance of leaders of Muslim community organisations in the last week has actually been very good. They have been very forthright in condemning this. They have united with leaders from other religious groups. Sheikh Ibrahim Mogra, for example, has been extremely active. And I think it is wrong to criticise them.
Okay. Masood, I won't ask you the same question, but what I want to touch upon is one of the points the caller made, especially Abdul Qadir, which is about this whole point about integration. That there is this feeling out there that, we bring this upon ourselves because we're not integrated. His example was marrying Christians. Is there a problem with integration?
No, it isn't. I remember a poll in Guardian, which actually looked at, and there was something like 75% to 80% of Muslims had non-Muslim friends, and they were, quite sort of integrated in that way. But there was only something like 40% of non-Muslims had actually Muslim friends. So the issue is not actually Muslim community going out to integrate. The issue is actually how the rest of community accepts and integrate with the Muslim. And then he went on saying something like 37% of Brits said they don't want to live next door to a black person. So, integration cannot be forced on a society. And marrying is not, this issue. People marry to
who
people they love, and also the people that they could identify with, they have the same sort of wave of thoughts, I actually think that the pressure, going back, is tremendous on the Muslim community. But also I feel that we have failed because, we need to challenge this. I remember being on a Sky.
Well, would one of the failures, would one of the failures be what Fatima mentioned right at the end, is the young people? And I'm aware of a couple of incidents where school children have been bullied, being called Taliban and everything else. So this is a reality that's happening. How is this really impacting the future generation, do you think?
One positive thing that you can see in the polling of the last week has been that younger people I'm talking about non-Muslims or the whole population, are less prejudiced against Muslims, less Islamophobic than older people. So I think that's something a bit more hopeful for the future. But I mean, I see the problem that exactly that you're talking about. I was talking to someone a couple of days ago who said to me, a Muslim community leader, you could say, and he was saying that his son had come back from school. In the first few days after the Woolwich attack, he'd been saying, how could these people do this thing? And he was angry about the attack. A few days later, he was saying, do I belong here? I'm feeling that people are out to get us. Is it okay for a Muslim to be living in Britain? This is a young teenage boy. Sure. And I think that's really upsetting and worrying, and it's something that the whole community needs to address, that Muslims are being scapegoated and made to feel responsible and outsiders because of this incident. And that's something that's a danger to all of us.
Scapegoating, and I will come to the callers, this scapegoating, I mean, if we go back to the original conversation about what Boris said, I mean, he used the term Islamism. This dividing the Muslim community into almost good Muslim, bad Muslim is what we've kind of got used to in the old Prevent program. Now, who are these Islamists? Who are these? What is Islamism? Because it is a bit of a confusing term. I mean, do you know what it means?
Islamism is a word that, unfortunately, people find attractive to use because it's quite short, but it's a word whose meaning is so wide that it's completely useless, because you can describe as an Islamist people like Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri at one extreme. At the opposite extreme, you would describe the Prime Minister of Turkey as an Islamist, or the President of Egypt. So it's a word that is so wide it doesn't mean anything. I encourage people to not use it. The problem is that most alternatives are quite a lot longer. All the takfiri for the people who are the really bad guys is actually quite an attractive word.
Okay. Well, so it's a confusing word. Let me go.
I think we should just pick up on this point, because I think this is it's a dangerous issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, Mohammed's completely right. I mean, Islamism covers a very broad political spectrum, but unfortunately, in the debate about terrorism in Britain and the Muslim community, it's been used as a kind of bogeyman by the government and the governing parties as something that should be abhorred, and failing to make a distinction between different forms of Islamism. So we have Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London, writing a couple of days ago about the virus of Islamism, at the same time as the British government is supporting Islamists in the Middle East in different parts of the region. So I think we have to be absolutely clear what we're talking about. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the population of the country, because people who don't know what it means, they hear the word Islamist and they think that means Muslim.
Well, this is how a lot of people in the community do feel, that there is a term created, that there is a narrative created, and then people are made to fit those narratives. And if you take the Islamist one, the term that's been created, it is a bad thing. It's a bogeyman. And then for the rest of society to understand who those people are, they are the ISOCs, the Islamic societies. They are, people like FOSIS. Is that the message?
I cannot believe that this terminology are being used or misused innocently. There is deliberate aspect of not defining these things, because then you could shift the parameter. You could shift it from one side to another, and politicians are doing that very effectively. Media is doing it very effectively, and by that definition, it actually covers the whole of the community. And you're absolutely right. The real issue is actually these needs to be defined. Our community is being under tremendous pressure in all levels, and it has to be coming to a stop. And one of the problems, and I'm sorry, I'm going to be very quick. One of the problems is that youth at the universities are being forced not to discuss issues of foreign policies, issues that needs to be discussed in a matter and publicly, openly, and addressed, are being pushed underground,
which is exactly what plays into the hands of the takfiri groups.
That is something that I do definitely want to discuss in the final part of my program. But just before I do go to the break, let me see if I can squeeze in a couple of calls. I believe Shah from London is online. Assalamu alaikum, Shah.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sorry, I called you Shah. I don't know if that's your name. Go ahead, sister, your views. And you need to put your television volume down, please. We're losing seconds. Okay, let's go to the next caller.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Please speak to me.
Yes. I think this whole issue is, I'm thankful
I'm thankful to Seamus Melanie, if I'm saying his name right, that he's being very frank and he's, speaking up for us, Muslim community. I think that basically this is the whole issue is about double standards, really. If a Christian kills a Christian, nobody goes and, attacks the churches or say that the Christian has killed somebody. Or if a Christian killed a Muslim, they would not say, we Muslims don't go, attacking their churches and attacking white people. But if just a single person or single Muslim attacks somebody, the media, just plays such a great part in this thing that even the politicians, they seem to be really backing the media in every way. And the moment this incident happened, within two hours, David Cameron has called on the Muslims as terrorists. And this would puts on the people that everybody starts hating Muslims because of this.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to interrupt you there because I am coming up to a break. Just to say in the final part that we are going to have after this break, I do really want to hear from your point of view some of the way forward for all of this. What should we as the Muslim community, what should we put forward in dealing with this issue? So please do call me with your views on that. And of course, my panelists and guests will also comment. See you after the break. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Your Views on the News with me, Azhar Ali. Final part. This part, we really want to hear your views about taking this forward, moving on. And inshallah, the phone lines are still open. So I'm going to straight away go to my callers. Smaller segment this time. So panelists, I will come back to you near the end. Let's see who's on the line first. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello.
Hello, Imran. Yes, you're on air. Your views, please.
Oh, hello. Assalamu alaikum. This is Imran. I'm actually on the executive of the Conservative Muslim Forum, which Mohammed is the chair of. And I just wanted to very briefly discuss the reaction to the awful atrocities that happened in Woolwich.
Sure.
I'm afraid I haven't watched the whole show this evening, but
no problems.
I know that Mohammed has proposed to Baroness Varzi or Theresa May the idea of having a special register of Muslims who are deemed to hold extremist views. The idea being that charities, if they've got a brown-looking person coming to ask them for a job, they can check, well, does this guy, he looks like he's Muslim, let's check if he's on the register to see if he's got any extremist views. And so there's that idea, and the corollary idea, which is the Snoopers Charter, which are the plans in the draft communications data bill for the blanket storage of everyone's internet and phone records. And I just wanted to really oppose both of these ideas because I think they're highly knee-jerk reactionary ideas which don't fit within the ethos of conservatism, not modern British conservatism anyway. Because actually I think to be a conservative, it means that you're interested in implementing liberal values. And these ideas are a kind of populist approach to try and they stoke up a sentiment of fear and they kind of appease a populist concern.
Sure.
And so,
okay, Imran, Jazakallah khair. I'd love to hear more from you. I've got loads of callers waiting. Thank you very much for that. And we will discuss the points you've raised. Let's go to our next caller. I believe it's Khalifa from, if that is your name, from London.
Yeah, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I just want to address a quick point that, from personal experience, I still feel that Muslims in, at least maybe my community, are still viewed as outcasts. As the other Friday, I was getting on the bus to go to Jummah prayers, and I had some people looking at me in a very as I'm an evil person.
Okay, they were giving you negative vibes, basically, yeah?
Yeah, negative vibes.
Okay.
I feel people don't know what Islam is really about. They don't know that the facts that over 60% of people, of the thousands of people that convert in the UK, are young white British women, and they don't know that if Islam was really about evil and preaching evil, that there's over 1.7 billion Muslims in the world, and wouldn't there be a lot more deaths than only one soldier in the streets?
Okay.
And, my condolences do go out to the soldier.
Sure.
And
you sound like a very young man. Well articulated points, and I will put that to the panelists. Let's go to our next caller. Let's see who's online. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
You're on air. Your views, please.
Thank you.
Go for it. You're on air.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Brother, I'd like to know how many churches were burned down when the Yorkshire Ripper killed God knows how many women. How many indigenous people were called Christian terrorists when the Frederick West killed so many women, which were buried under the cellar? Are there no pedophiles in this society, in British society? Are there no rapists in this society? If they are they called Christians?
Okay.
If not, then why?
Okay, thank you very much for that point. Let's take one more call and I'll come back to my panelists. Muhammad is calling from Woolwich. Assalamu alaikum, Muhammad. Hello, Muhammad. Okay, we've lost Muhammad. Let's go to Asma, who's calling from London. Assalamu alaikum, Asma. Okay, it's not Asma. I don't know, I'm getting all these names in my ear and I'm getting it wrong. I hope Farouk is there from London.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Third time lucky. Go for it, Farouk.
For the brothers on the panel. It's to do with this idea that all Muslims be painted with the same brush. You know, I think the government, they're a lot more intelligent than this. Okay, it was a horrible killing. But there again, like it's been said before, you know, if you see the foreign policy that's there, it's not doing them justice at all. Because people are being massacred all over the place on a daily basis, especially coming from the Muslim countries. I think that there's got to be something more positive coming from the government so that, you know, a community cannot be blamed for the doing of one or two persons, whether rightly or wrongly, what they've done. I think we really have a good thinking about this and put our mind to really resolve this problem, because we are part and parcel of this British community. A lot of us are born here. We are British. So what does that mean? Is that like we are second rate or third rate?
Okay.
Kind of situation, you know, when it comes to us.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Sorry, I'm rushing you because I'm going to take one more caller and finally come to my panelists who've been waiting very patiently. And I hope Asma is there from Birmingham. Assalamu alaikum, Asma. Okay, no more callers then. We have lost Asma. That's the second time. Okay, Muhammad, if I can start with you. In terms of going forward, I mean, this article that you wrote about creating a register for Muslims with extreme views.
Well, first of all,
why have you proposed that?
First of all, Imran Khan obviously can't read very well. I have proposed something. It's a government register of preachers of hate. And the word preachers is used in its widest sense, not just religious people, but other people who go around propagating hate as well.
Sure.
So it's not a register of Muslims with extremist views. It's a register of people who actually go out on platforms and make speeches. And the reason for proposing this is that time and again we hear universities, mosques, other organisations which get criticised afterwards because so-and-so has spoken there propagating unacceptable views, regardless of which religious or political background that they would come from.
Who would determine these unacceptable views?
Let me continue. And the normal response of the university is that we didn't know that so-and-so was coming or that he had unacceptable views. Right. And therefore, I believe it would be helpful to have a register that these universities consult.
Who would be the people that will build the criteria to put someone on there?
The government. And that wouldn't
okay, let me bring in my other guest.
No, because you need to understand the proposal.
Yeah.
It wouldn't stop people appearing on platforms. The university has a free choice if it wants to use that person or not. But that person would come with a government health warning.
Okay, so it's a bit like a cigarette packet. It comes with a warning.
Look, the problem is, again, you know, it goes back to the definition. I mean, already we are in trouble, people being banned to come in this country. And, you know, we have cases after cases that the Zionist sort of website, which nobody really gives much importance, puts 2 lines or 3 lines. And then on basis of that, people are actually stopped from entering into the country. And if that's the same basis that the government does the same thing, we're going to be in trouble. You know, we had the case of Sheikh Salah, you know, he was here, he voted, and the court said, no, there's no reason for him not to be allowed in. Now, the other thing is actually this is very selective. Are we going to give a health warning on Melanie Phillips? Or Ben Zinguri, a commander of 20,000 Israeli commandos, who's right now in Britain, going around from synagogue to synagogue, talking how moral the Israeli Defense Force is, you know, and actually promoting a force which is known to commit war crime. These are sort of things. I mean, I much prefer that people come and speak out, and they be addressed, and you know others will address their issues, because I know from the past this is not going to be sort of unbiased. We're going to find that what we're going to get, all Muslims are going to be put on it on a basis of hearsay of very.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, if those of us who are unfortunate enough to be in debt or have taken credit, you know how easily you can lose your credit rating. And it's you don't know which organisation took your credit rating. It could be because you've bought a house that had bad credit rating. I mean, it's a nightmare. A government is this a serious proposal? Because the government's also looking at how it can tackle preachers of extremism, if you like.
Yeah, I think it's extremely worrying, and actually the proposals from the government go a lot further than what Mohammed's talking about. I mean, and I think that's dangerous enough. I think, you know, this is a recipe for McCarthyism, for witch hunts. It's the absolutely last thing we need. We need to have open debate. We need to allow Muslim youth to speak freely and discuss the issues of foreign policy in particular, and the wars in the Muslim world that are causing such outrage among Muslims and non-Muslims. We have legislation in place now to deal with people who incite violence or incite racial hatred, and those laws should be enforced. Apart from that, there should be a clear and open debate.
What about this cynical way? Also, a lot of people have said that the Snoopers Charter, as it's called now, the communication bill, is trying to kind of be massaged in, if you like, using Woolwich as an incident.
I mean, this is what happened in the United States and here after 9/11. You had a whole raft of attacks on civil liberties and a huge extension of electronic surveillance, which has actually been extremely damaging to community relations. It doesn't, in fact, deal with these issues because, as we saw in the Woolwich case, no amount of surveillance would have dealt with their desire to make this attack. In fact, we see that MI5 was actually trying to recruit them and manipulate these guys. So it's not, the issue wasn't that the security services weren't involved, they were involved. So I think, you know, there has to be a different approach. There has to be an honest debate about the wars that Britain and America have launched and carried through in the last decade or more in the Muslim world. They have to be brought to an end, and we have to stop this attempt to witch hunt and treat in the McCarthyite way an entire community. There needs to be an attempt to bring people together and have an open, honest political debate. We have the legislation to prosecute incitement to racism or race hatred or violence.
Mohammed, I mean, in terms of going forward, what do you think? What would you say from the Muslim community's point of view? What can it do, and what should the government do?
The most important thing that the Muslim community should be doing on an individual basis is getting to know more people in the wider community, getting more involved in community organizations. Prejudice is always greatest from those people who don't know you. If you look at white people in this country, it's the ones who never come across a Muslim who are actually the ones who are full of anti-Muslim hatred. The more you actually mix with people, the more you talk with them, the more you get to know them, the less prejudice there is. And Muslims need to be active in going out to these people rather than hiding at home.
Sure. And one of the points, Masood, Seamus mentioned was this idea of a safe space. I mean, this is also a lot of the universities, they've also been saying how much pressure on Muslim students there is, where they really want to discuss issues like jihad and all of that kind of stuff, but they feel if they do a talk on that, there'd be brandished extremists.
No, you see, this is already happening. There's no legislation already happening. People are being marked as untouchable. The government doesn't talk to a certain group of people because they say, they got they're against certain foreign policies, etc., etc. We need to actually integrate. One way of integrating is actually majority of people are against these wars. So we need to integrate on those bases. But also, I think one thing is very important. It's what actually creates philosophy that creates terrorism is the concept that end justifies means. And that is exactly what our government is involved, US is involved, and it's been involved before 9/11 when Madeleine Albright said 500,000 children dying is justifiable. This is exactly the same ideology of those who attacked towers and elsewhere. We need to remove that. And Islam, as a matter of fact, is opposing that view. In Islam, we say the end is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The means is we are responsible to have halal means to actually do that. We need to teach our youth to have sort of ambition to create a better and just society, not just here, but around the world, but given the tools which is accepted under Islam and the civil society to do it, and we need to train them. Pushing them under the ground is actually really damages and actually creates more problems and it solves none.
I mean, just a final word, Seamus. The last point that Masood mentioned there was about having this open discussion. Do you think it's going to be ever possible now to go back to a time where you could openly discuss these things in universities, or are we too far gone in the way you kind of termed it, the security type approach to all of this?
No, I think it is possible, but it requires a really determined push from within the Muslim community and among non-Muslims to open this space up, to understand that this attempt to drive open discussion and debate about these issues underground actually plays into the hands of the Takfiri groups who want to do these kind of attacks. So I think it's very important that we draw those things into the open. People aren't intimidated and they take part actively in politics. I mean, that's one of the really worrying things that's happened in the last decade. Many Muslims have felt intimidated from taking part in politics with non-Muslims and in their own community. And that's been dangerous for all of us. It's unhealthy, it's undemocratic, and if we're going to bring these wars to an end, which I regard as an extremely important priority for all of us, we have to work together to do that, and people have to be involved in politics and public action to do that.
Quick response, Mohammed Amin. Would the government talk about foreign policy, do you think, in its task force?
Look, our government is withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan.
Will the government talk about foreign policy in its task force? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Masood, Mohammed Amin and Seamus for joining me this evening. Apologies I didn't give you more time, and I'm really, really sorry to all my callers because I know I didn't give you enough time. Unfortunately, time does run out very quickly, even though we extended today's show. Hopefully you found it useful. And I think I just want to iterate what Masood said at the end, which is that really in Islam, it's not the end that justifies the means, it's all about the means. And I think, if I recall correctly, even the security services were saying, actually, if people are more practicing is Muslims, if they practice their religion more, they're less likely to do a terrorist act. Because criminality, that's what it is. Inshallah, I shall see you next week, perhaps on a different topic. Unless the government announces the task force details, maybe we'll talk about it. Take care.